$180.42. That is the monthly check a 10% VA disability rating pays in 2026, and the veteran who opens that letter usually feels like the VA just told them no. They tuck it away. They almost apologize for it. And that single reflex is the most expensive mistake a veteran can make, because the check is the smallest thing a 10% rating actually hands you. There is one benefit riding on that rating that the VA never prints beside the dollar figure that can save a veteran more than $6,000 in a single afternoon. Hold that number, because almost nobody ties it to a 10.
I'm Maya, and that gap is the whole problem. People grade the rating by the check when the check is only line 1 of a much longer list. Service connection is the genuinely hard thing to win from the VA, and at 10% you have already won it.
Open that up, Maya, because it is the spine of the whole episode.
Service connection is the VA agreeing in writing that your condition came from your service. That agreement is the door. The percentage is just how far it swings open today, and a 10 means the door is open. An open door beats a bigger number you never got.
Lewis here, and let me say the ugly part plainly. There is real stigma around a 10. Veterans hear it from other veterans that anything under 30 is not a real disability, that you are gaming the system. That talk costs people thousands because they walk away from what they earned.
Hi everyone, May here, and strategically, shame is the most expensive emotion in this entire system because not one thing we are about to list shows up on its own. Each one waits for you to claim it. Stay embarrassed, skip the paperwork, and the door quietly swings shut.
And a viewer sent in the exact question that started this. Lewis, read it out, word for word.
Here it is, exactly as written. I only got 10%. Should I just keep it to myself, or is it actually worth anything?
By the end of this, you will have a real answer, with the dollars and the doors on the table. So let us start where the doubt starts, with the check itself, and be completely honest about what it is and what it is not.
Let me set the real figure down first, because precision is the whole game. In 2026, effective December 1st of 2025, 10% pays $180.42 a month across a year. That is roughly $2,165. And two things about it matter more than its size. First, it is completely tax-free, no federal income tax and no state income tax, not a cent. So next to wages, it is worth more than the same number on a paycheck because nothing is withheld from it.
And building on that, it does not sit still. Every year, the VA adds a cost of living increase, the same COLA that lifts Social Security, so the 10% check climbs with inflation instead of eroding against it.
Okay, but I promised honesty, so here is the part the 10% crowd does not want to hear. At 10 and 20%, your dependents do not raise the check at all. Not your spouse, not your kids, none of them, and you do not have to take our word for it. This is the VA's own rate page. 10% pays $180.42, right there in the table, and the note beside it says it flat out. If you have a 10 to 20% rating, you will not receive a higher rate even if you have a dependent spouse, child, or parent.
That dependent add-on does not switch on until 30%. Below 30, the figure is flat no matter your family size. And a veteran deserves to hear that straight, rather than buried in fine print. It is a genuine limitation.
And that flat check is exactly why people undervalue the 10. They read it as a paycheck. It is not a paycheck, it is a key. The $2,000 is fine, but its real job is to unlock the doors behind it, and that is where the actual money lives.
That is the right way to hold it. A modest check, tax-free, flat below 30. But the instant that rating exists, it switches on a stack of benefits that have nothing to do with the monthly amount. Start with the one that for a lot of veterans beats the check entirely: healthcare. Quick, honest ask while we are here. If this has been worth your time so far, hit like, then subscribe and ring the bell. I know everyone asks, but this one is free and it is how a small channel like this actually grows. Here is the benefit that most often beats the check, and veterans walk right past it because it does not show up as cash. A 10% rating changes where you stand inside the VA healthcare system.
Let me define the structure first. The VA sorts every enrollee into priority groups, numbered 1 through 8. The lower the number, the higher your priority and the lighter your costs. A veteran the VA has rated 10 or 20% service-connected lands in Priority Group 3. And Group 3 is a strong place to stand. You are enrolled, you sit near the front of the line, and your cost of care is low. For a lot of veterans, that single change is the most valuable thing a 10% rating ever does.
Here is the part that turns it into real dollars. For the condition that is service-connected, your care comes with no copay. The treatment, the follow-ups, managing that condition. You are not billed a copay for it. That is the position you want locked in before you ever need the care.
Let me fence that in, because people hear free care and assume everything is free. It is not. The no copay treatment is for your service-connected condition. But for the very condition that earned you the 10, that is a real break, and it repeats every single visit.
And add the piece nobody budgets for, travel. The VA reimburses eligible travel to and from appointments for your service-connected care. For a veteran, an hour from the nearest VA medical center. That mileage back, every visit, is money that never appears in the headline rating but lands in your account anyway.
Put a frame on it. One specialist visit outside the VA, with the bill attached, can cost more than an entire month of that 10% check. Move that same care inside the VA at low or no cost, and the rating has paid for itself many times over without touching the $2,000.
So the healthcare door, by itself, can be worth more than the amount the veteran was tempted to feel ashamed of. And we are still only 2 doors in. Let us bring the whole table together and name everything that quietly stacks on top of a 10. Let us run this as a roundtable. I will call out the add-ons that can ride on top of a 10% rating, and you tell me why each one matters and who it actually applies to. No arguments today, just the map. Maya, take the first one.
The first is the surprise of the whole list. Special monthly compensation, the level called SMC-K. It pays $139.87 a month in 2026, and the VA adds it on top of your basic compensation for any rating from 0 to 100%. Any rating including a 10.
Let me clarify that before anyone mishears it. SMC-K is not automatic at 10%. It is paid for a specific kind of loss, the loss or loss of use of a particular part of the body, and most veterans at 10 will not have it. But the veteran who does gets that $140 a month stacked on top of the $180 because the rating ceiling does not block it.
My door is the big one from the cold open. When you buy with a VA loan, the funding fee is a one-time charge that can run into the thousands on a normal home. A veteran receiving compensation for a service-connected disability is exempt from it entirely. That is the $6,000 at the closing table, unlocked by the same 10% people wanted to throw away.
And to be precise, because this is the headline, it is the fact that you are receiving service-connected compensation that triggers the waiver, not the size of the rating. A 10% veteran and a 100% veteran are both exempt from that funding fee. It happens once, but on a single home purchase, it is the most valuable thing a 10 can do.
Door 3 is state benefits, and these live in a different system entirely. Your state, not the federal VA, runs its own layer. Some states open property tax breaks, vehicle benefits, or license discounts to service-connected veterans, and a number of them key off having a rating at all rather than a high one. It varies by state, so check yours.
My next door is smaller, and I will fence it in myself. The VA clothing allowance is real money each year, but only if you use a qualifying device, a brace, a prosthetic, a wheelchair, or a prescribed skin medication that wears out or stains your clothes. It is condition-based, not rating-based. So if that is you at 10, claim it. And if it is not, do not expect it.
And here is the structural point I want on the record. A 10% rating is a foothold. The same condition can be increased if it worsens, and new conditions can be added to the claim later. You are already inside the system and already service connected, which is the hard wall most people never get over.
So look at the table we just built. A possible monthly SMC add-on, a funding fee waiver worth thousands, a separate state layer, a clothing allowance for the right condition, and a foothold for everything that comes next. None of that is the $180 check. All of it rides on the rating that produces it.
And everyone shares the same catch, so let me say it for the whole table. Not one of these is automatic. The SMC, the funding fee exemption, the state breaks, the clothing allowance, each is a separate claim or form. The rating opens the door, but you still have to walk through it.
Then let us make it concrete. Numbers on the table, 1 veteran, 1 year, so you can actually see what the stack looks like when it is real.
Numbers, or it did not happen. So let me build a real one. Picture a veteran we will call Dan, rated 10% for a service-connected condition, who uses the VA for that care and happens to have a qualifying loss that brings SMC-K. Maya has the sharp question here, so put it on the table.
It is the question every viewer is running in their head right now. Add it all up, what is one 10% year actually worth once you stop staring at the $180 check? Because until there is a total, this stays theory.
Fair question, and the honest answer needs a caveat nailed up first. Only the first line here is automatic at 10%, and the rest depend entirely on your situation. This is an illustration of how the stack works for a veteran who qualifies, not a quote for everyone. The shape is the lesson.
Good, build it from the top then. Line 1 is what every 10% veteran gets. The base compensation, about $2,165 across the year, tax-free.
Now line 2, and only because Dan qualifies. His SMC-K at $139.87 a month adds about $1,678 across the year, stacked right on top of the base. A veteran without that qualifying loss simply does not have this line, and that is fine.
Line 3 is the healthcare door turned into dollars, and the star matters. Call it about $1,200 in copays Dan does not pay this year for his service-connected care, including the travel back and forth. It is illustrative. Your figure depends on how much care you use, but for an active year it is conservative.
Add the column, and for a veteran in Dan's situation, the 10% rating returns a little over $5,000 in a single year. More than double the headline check, and that is before we even count the big one-time item.
And that one-time item is the funding fee. It is not on the receipt because it does not repeat every year. But the year Dan buys a home with his VA loan, that exemption alone can be worth more than everything above it combined. One signature, thousands saved, off the same 10%.
And the brutal flip side. Every line above the base only exists if Dan claimed it. Skip the SMC paperwork, never enroll in VA healthcare, and that $5,000 collapses right back to the $180 check the internet told him to be embarrassed about.
So all $5,000 of it stays theoretical until you put it on paper. Before we close, let me show you the single piece of paper that turns every bit of this into a real check. Here is the part almost nobody shows you. It is one form, and it is the same form whether you are filing your very first claim or filing for an increase years down the road.
It is VA Form 21526EZ, the application for disability compensation. Let me put the real form on the screen so you know exactly what you are looking at. Section 1 is the part most increases even need, and it opens with who you are. Box 2 is your name, first, middle, and last, one letter to a box. Box 3 is your social security number. So far it is exactly what you would expect.
But stop right there on box 5, because this is the one that trips people up. Your VA file number is not automatically your social security number. For plenty of veterans, it is a separate number the VA assigned, and putting the wrong one in delays the whole claim.
So here is the move that saves you the headache. If you have ever received a VA letter, a rating decision, an award letter, your file number is printed on it, and that is what goes in box 5. If you have never had one, your social security number is your file number by default.
One form. That is the entire on-ramp to every door we listed today. And the only thing standing between a veteran and that form is the belief that 10% was not worth filing, which is exactly where the community gets it wrong. So here's the reframe, said plainly. 10% is not a failure, it is a foundation. The single hardest thing to win from the VA is the agreement that your condition is connected to your service, and at 10% you already hold that in writing.
And there is a quiet protection inside it almost nobody mentions: your effective date. The day your service connection started is locked in with that rating. If the condition worsens later and your rating climbs, that history is already established, which protects the back pay you could be owed. Walking away from a 10 throws that anchor overboard.
Now the honest fork, because there is a real choice here, and I will not pretend there is only one answer. Should you push for a higher rating or leave your 10 alone? It depends, and both paths are legitimate.
Push if your condition has genuinely gotten worse, or if you were honestly underrated to begin with. Then you are likely leaving money and a better healthcare tier on the table, and filing for an increase is exactly right. 30% and up is where dependents start counting, so for a veteran with a family and a worsening condition, that climb is worth real effort.
But here is the other side, steelmanned, because it is true too. If your condition is stable and you are doing fine, you are not obligated to chase a bigger number to satisfy a comment section. Filing an increase means a fresh exam, and your time and energy are real costs. A stable, secured 10 that quietly opens every door we listed is a perfectly good place to stand.
So the verdict is not push or do not push. The verdict is this. File for an increase when your body tells you to, not when strangers shame you into it, and never confuse a low number with a worthless one. The one thing you must not do is walk away from a rating you earned.
And when you file, use a VA-accredited Veterans Service Officer. A good VSO knows these forms cold, files alongside you, and here is the part people refuse to believe. Their help is completely free. Anyone demanding a fee up front to file your claim is the wrong person.
So let me put the real stakes on the board, side by side. A veteran who feels ashamed and does nothing keeps the $180 check and nothing else. A veteran who claims the doors turns that same 10% into thousands. That is the entire choice.
And that gap is not luck. It is paperwork. The same rating, the same body, the same VA. The only difference between those two veterans is that one of them stopped being embarrassed long enough to file.
If you forget every figure today, keep this. 10% is a door that is already open, and the shame is the only thing standing in it. Erica, take us out and put the question to them.
Here's what I want you chewing on, and drop it in the comments. If you are sitting at 10% right now, which of these doors have you actually walked through, and which one are you claiming first? Here's the one thing to carry out of today. A 10% rating is not a consolation prize, it is a key. The check is modest and flat below 30%, but the rating unlocks healthcare, a possible monthly add-on, a funding fee waiver worth thousands, and a foothold for everything that comes next.
My favorite number from today is the gap. The same 10% that pays $180 a month can return over $5,000 in a year for a veteran who claims the doors. Same rating, different paperwork.
And the thing I will not let go of is the stigma. Nobody should ever talk you out of a benefit you earned. If you are at 10%, you did not fail, you won the part that is hard to win.
My move for you this week is the cheapest one. Enroll in VA healthcare if you have not, so Priority Group 3 actually works for you. Then pick one more door and file the form. future you collects on it every single year.
Quickly before we wrap, a small ask that actually matters. If this earned it, tap like and hit subscribe. Every one of those helps build the series so more people who need this can find it. That is the whole picture. Be good to yourself out there, and thank you for watching. Professor Erica.